My first postpartum was hardly the normal new mom experience. My baby was in the NICU for 2 months. I could not breastfeed. She had a surgery at just 7 weeks old. There were days at a time when I couldn't hold my newborn, and it was really, really tough. Now, with my second baby, I was like, well, I'm not high risk this time. I'm having my baby at home, no NICU stay needed. So postpartum's gonna be a breeze. And boy, was I wrong. This is really hard for me to admit because as a doula and birth educator, I wanna believe that I have it all figured out. But nope, it has been a humbling experience. And my big takeaway is that a normal postpartum journey doesn't always mean an easy postpartum journey. Hello, my name is Maria. I'm a birth doula and Lamaze-Certified childbirth educator, as well as owner of the app Natural Birth by Echo, an evidence-based resource with all of the tips and tricks you need to make your unmedicated birth a positive one. So for starters, breastfeeding was really, really tough at first. Colby was on the smaller side, just 6 pounds and 4 ounces at birth, which it was expected because Sam and I are not huge people, but because Colby's mouth was smaller, it made latching difficult. He also had a slight tongue tie and a lip tie and a little bit of muscle tension in his left cheek due to his positioning in the womb. It's kind of like having a crick in your neck from being in the same position for too long. He had that, but just in his mouth. Now, none of these things that I just mentioned were problematic in themselves, but all of them together made for a very, very painful breastfeeding journey. I mean, excruciating. I was cracked and bleeding. Meanwhile, my mother is telling me, oh, well, you know, it's always painful at first. And I'm like, how? I can give birth without pain meds, but I can't breastfeed? How did we not all starve to death as infants? This is so bad. My brother-in-law was visiting and he's holding Josephine in the living room. I'm in the bedroom trying to nurse Colby when he heard me in the bedroom yelling, "Mother lover!" Except I did not say lover. He jokingly asked, is she having another baby in there? Because it was just so painful. Fortunately, I had the best midwife in the entire world who came by a few days later. She took one look at me and she was like, this is not normal. There's painful breastfeeding and then there's damaging breastfeeding. She said, you are giving yourself nerve damage by pushing through this amount of pain, which once she said that, it was a huge relief to get some kind of affirmation. So she referred me to a physical therapist who showed us oral stretches to help Colby's mouth muscles stretch out and latch better. In the meantime, I had a lactation consultant come by and she was so sweet. She saw how much pain I was in and she suggested that I take a break for a few days to let everything heal and then try again a few days later. And this is not something I'd ever suggest that my own clients do because using a bottle or a pacifier, it creates nipple confusion. And then your baby learns to prefer that to actual breastfeeding. So I didn't want to, but the pain was so bad. I did end up taking a 48-hour break. And again, this is hard for me to admit, but in the meantime, I pumped, we bottle fed, and I pretty much remained topless to accelerate the healing process. Then when I did go out and put clothes on, I used Silverettes, which I highly recommend if you intend to breastfeed. And those really, really helped. We returned to breastfeeding and this time I started back slowly. I was switching off and on between the bottle and the breast every other feed. Meanwhile, I knew that post-birth contractions existed. I had them with Josephine, but oh my gosh, I didn't know that they became worse after each successive baby. And these contractions were not like birth contractions. I mean, they feel the same, but you can't cope the same. You know what I mean? You can't move through them because you're confined to a bed and they're not purposeful and rewarding. You don't get a baby at the end. They're just annoying and painful. And in case you don't know, post-birth contractions occur mainly during breastfeeding because of the oxytocin release. So that just made breastfeeding even more miserable than it already was, which I didn't know was possible at this point. So not only were my boobs killing me, now I was contracting like I'm having another child. And I did this to myself, but I did not properly hydrate because going to the bathroom is such a massive pain after giving birth. So I really just avoided drinking anything at all, only to find out later that dehydration prolongs post-birth contractions. Usually they're done in 48 hours. Not for me, mine lasted for 4 freaking days. Now, everybody knows that with dehydration comes headaches, and couple that with breastfeeding, which sucks the moisture out of every cell in your body, and my head felt like it was splitting open. I could barely tolerate the light. Noises bothered me. I couldn't sit up. It was bad, but I'm not done. If you watched my birth story, you can do that right here. You know that I retore where the obstetrician gave me an episiotomy at my first birth, which was non-consensual, by the way, and it was small. It didn't even need stitches, but for whatever reason, that tiny little skid mark did not want to heal. Every movement I made, it became irritated. It stung so bad whenever I had to go pee. Even the midwife said, it should not be taking this long to heal. But there it was, a teensy tiny little wound that felt like a knife up my crotch. So my boobs hurt. I was having intense contractions for days. My head was killing me. My nether region felt like glass in my underwear. And on top of all of that, back pain. Oh my gosh. A lot of women experience this after birth because contractions can wrap around your back, and I guess I'm just one of those women. So normal post-birth back pain coupled with not being able to switch positions due to my boobs and my belly and my crotch hurting so much, I just laid there for 24 hours a day for well over a week, just trying to rest and recover, but inadvertently causing myself hideous discomfort. It felt like there was not a single region of my body that was not in some kind of pain. Over time, it did get better. The contractions wore off after about 4 days, like I mentioned. The headaches were about a week. My vaginal tear became not better, but it became manageable after about 2 weeks. But tragically, the worst pain, my boobs were in a rough shape for 3 weeks until we finally got Colby's tongue and lip tie released. And honestly, I'm kind of kicking myself a little bit because looking back, almost every one of those pains could have been avoided or at least mitigated. The nipple pain was gone the minute we got his tongue and lip tie done. And we should have done it a lot earlier instead of stubbornly saying, oh, it'll get better, it'll get better. It didn't, it did not get better. The headaches and contractions would have definitely improved had I just drank some water and gotten electrolytes like I should have. And that painful vaginal tear, I suspect that if I had slowed down when I was pushing, just like I tell my own clients to do, then the postpartum pain would not have been nearly as bad. So I did it to myself. And finally, my back. By simply drinking water, pushing slowly, and getting that lip tie done earlier, I would have eased all of these other pains so I'd be able to move around and my back would not have become so sore. Whew. That's a lot. I'm kicking myself for all of this self-imposed agony. And you know, it's kind of funny. I'm not the only doula who fails to take her own advice. I've heard from others that they kind of let things go when it comes to their own postpartum experiences, which is the exact opposite of what we tell our own clients to do. So this is a very humbling reminder that I do not, in fact, have it all together, and I should, in fact, take my own advice next time. Hopefully I'll know by baby number 3, I'll have learned my lesson, and in the meantime, you can learn from my mistakes, which is why I want to be so open with you in the first place. Mental health-wise, I've been good overall. I ate my placenta, I had it encapsulated, and it's said to really boost your mood postpartum, and yeah, I'd say that it worked for me. And of course, there were a few days in those first 2-ish weeks where, I was just so exhausted. I was in pain, I was overwhelmed, and I also hate relying on other people. And I had a meltdown or two. I'm also the kind of person who just finds a lot of joy in being productive. And here I was, unable to even get a snack for myself. My midwife had made it very clear that every time I got out of bed, I am prolonging the healing process. Something else that I struggled with was letting go of routine. Exercise was out of the question. My normal sleep routine was non-existent. It was beautiful outside. We live on the Potomac River and I couldn't even take a walk. So that was really hard. Now that we've got all the lows out of the way, I want to highlight the incredible positives that made everything worth it. First of all, I have my baby. He's absolutely perfect. I got the beautiful healing home birth that I wanted after the tornado that was my first birth. Holding my newborn skin to skin was so healing and powerful. When Josephine was in the NICU, like I mentioned, some days I couldn't hold her at all, and when I could, she was covered in wires and tubes, and it was very emotionally taxing. So after everything I'd been through, just being able to pick my baby up, co-sleep straight away, it was everything I wanted. I also think that postpartum can be a very bonding time for couples, and of course, it's a challenge. You're sleepless, you're on edge, you're in survival mode, and your relationship kind of goes on the back burner. But that's so short-lived. Overall, having children with Sam just makes me love him so much more. I love seeing him as a dad. He takes such good care of us. Right now, he's building a shed in the backyard with my brother, and he gets very focused out there. But today, he came in just to check on me, help with whatever I might need. And I'm not even postpartum anymore, but that is what an incredible birth partner and life partner looks like. I also had a ton of support from my family. My parents came by a ton. My cousins, sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles, we have a huge extended family, and they've all been so incredibly supportive. My parents come over, not even to hold their grandchildren most of the time, but to cook, clean, fold laundry. They literally showed up a lot just to serve, and I could not be more grateful. It truly does take a village. So no, none of it was easy, but there was not a single day that we did not get some kind of support for at least the first 3 weeks postpartum. So how was my second postpartum journey? It was good. Overall, I'm a happy mama. I've got a great husband, and we're excited to start trying for our third baby soon. I hope that you learned from my mistakes when preparing for your own upcoming postpartum journey. And if you want more evidence-based natural birth and parenting tips, you're in the right spot. So go ahead and hit subscribe, and I will see you next time.